We will begin our session here. This is our regular meeting of Tuesday, February the 4th. We will call this to order. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Alderman Vaughn and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most holy, all wise, all knowing, all powerful, all seeing, all hearing, all understanding God. Father God, here's a few of your handmaid servants, elected officials, the mayor of the board, and Alderman woman, the vice mayor, Lord. We come before you again tonight. It's not for no shape, form, or fashion, nor is for outside show to the world. We come before you, Lord, to most of all to give thanks and praise and honor and glory to you for allowing us to be in these positions. But most of all, Father God, that you will bless us to make good, wise, and sound decisions for these your peoples who elected us. We thank you. We ask you, Father, that you will please forgive us of all our sins, known and unknown, seen and unseen, and blot out our transgression. Pray now, God, that you will just continue to bless all world leaders all around the world, Father God. That we will link to you and lean and depend on you instead of leaning and depending on our own understanding. Getting guidance and direction from you, Father God, which way to go to lead your peoples. King Solomon asked the Lord, just grant me knowledge, wisdom, and understanding how to lead and guide your peoples. Being able to discern right and wrong, good and evil for your peoples. Now, Father God, is in the name of Jesus, we ask you for the same thing that King Solomon asked you. Bless us now. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here this evening. Our first order of business will be approval of the official agenda with consented items. Does anyone have any changes to make to the agenda as it is published? Alderman Little.
Under Mayor's Business, item 2, we add that to consent. There's no objections.
Okay. Does anyone have any issue with moving that item to consent?
I don't, Mayor. I just didn't know if there's anybody here that wanted to comment on that matter.
Well, actually, Mr. Hagan Walker was going to come up during the citizens' comments and allows him 3 minutes. So he will do that, and then if you wanted to pull it off for any reason, you could do so. But in the meantime, we'll put it on consent.
And I think it's important to know that there's no investment of city funds in this.
Right. Okay. Anything further? Anything further? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion for the approval of the official agenda with the consented items as amended.
Move approval, Mayor.
I have a motion from Alderman Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Carver. Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I will read the consented items. First is consideration of the minutes of the January 7th, 2020 meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. In consideration of the minutes of the January 17th, 2020 work session of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Then we have under Mayor's Business, consideration of members of the Mayor's Youth Council to attend the 13th Annual MML Statewide Youth Leadership Summit in Hattiesburg, Mississippi on February 28th and 29th of 2020. And then recently added was consideration of authorizing Main Street and the Convention and Visitors Council to proceed with proposed improvements to Fire Station Park as presented. Under Board Business, we have consideration of appointing Amy Jones Bishop, who's a sole candidate to the Oktibbeha County Heritage Museum Board for an unexpired term that will expire on December the 31st of 2021. Under Planning, we have consideration of a selection of Jamie Ware, AIA, as an independent consultant for a 2-year term, the establishment of a review fee of $200, and the compensation rate of $200 for architectural review. Under Engineering, we have request approval to authorize the Mayor to accept the lowest bid and enter into a construction contract with the lowest bidder for the SHS Bridge project, should the bids received February the 6th, 2020 be considered valid, competitive, and within budget, according to the engineering estimate and upon approval of the city engineer and city attorney. Next, under Finance, we have request approval to renew a mechanical maintenance service agreement with Brislin, Inc. for City Hall and the Police Department. Under the Fire Department, we have consideration of rescinding the purchase order to Sunbelt Fire of a ladder truck described as an E1 HP 100P 100-foot aerial platform mounted on an E1 Cyclone 2 chassis. Mississippi State Contract Number 820002799. due to inexcusable delays in the building of the truck. If approved, this item would rescind the previous action of the board in authorizing the purchase of September 4, 2018, as well as the authorization to finance this truck. Number 2 is consideration to purchase one Rosenbauer aerial fire truck at state contract number 8200028127 of $1,460,000 with the city clerk CFO to obtain financing. Under Human Resources, we have number 1, request authorization to hire Staten Pope as a maintenance worker for the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Number 2 is request authorization to hire Hunter Krim and Brandon Worrell as apprentice linemen in the Starkville Utilities Department. Number 3 is request authorization to hire Brandon Taylor as a customer service representative in the Starkville Utilities Department. Number 4 is request authorization to hire Marlon Fair as a maintenance worker in the Starkville Utilities Department. Number 5, request authorization to hire Brian Locke as a reserve police captain in the Starkville Police Department. Number 6 is request authorization to hire Christopher Black as an operations manager in the Starkville Street Department. And number 7 is request authorization to hire Latasha Key as an administrative assistant in the Starkville Police Department. Under Parks, we have consideration of the approval of $5,550 for youth softball uniforms from Rex Team Sports, the lowest of 3 quotes. Number 2 is consideration of approval of $23,725 for youth baseball uniforms from Rex Team Sports, the lower of 2 quotes. Number 3 is consideration of a professional services contract with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. for master planning services for the bicycle and pedestrian master plan as required in the 10-minute walk grant from the National Recreation and Parks Association. Number 4, consideration to advertise for bids for restroom facilities at Patriots Park and J.L. King Senior Memorial Park. Under Utilities Department, we have request authorization to advertise for bids for a substation battery system, material only, and a substation relay panels and equipment, material only, for the Southwest Starkville 161-6913 kV substation. Number 2 is request authorization to accept the lowest and best quote from Ditch Witch Mid-South to purchase an updated quad frequency tracker for Ditch Witch JT2020 directional boring machine in the amount of $17,821.47. And last but not least, request authorization for Starkville Utilities to execute the AIA agreement for JBHM Architecture to develop plans and bid package for expansion of the Starkville Utilities Electric Operations Center to allow combining water and electric operations at one site. And that concludes the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor.
And my pleasure, thank you. And under Mayor's comments, the Greater Starkville Development Partnership Banquet is this evening. And so they held it on a night when the board couldn't be there because we're having this unless we go a little bit late. So I get to make an announcement that probably won't be out yet, so y'all can't tell anybody. But Starkville is getting the Crystal Pineapple Tourism Award for its Parks Department, which I think is wonderful. So Mr. Logan has been excused from this meeting to go accept that award at the partnership banquet. So nah. That's what you get for leaving us out. But anyway, it's a really cool award. So it talks about exactly how important it is to our tourism that our Parks and Recreation Department is the quality and the caliber of what we want it to be and getting even better. So anyway, and that's all I've got. Anyone from the board have any announcements or comments to make?
I've just got a couple.
Mr. Carver, Alderman Carver.
Oh, these are all over the board and all over the map, but some things that I've noticed. And one, just for public discussion, is the White House at Starkville High School. I went by there and toured it a couple times. And this is kind of the launching pad for young artists within this area and community, and thousands have come through there. We'll be in need of some small repairs over the next year or two. I went through there, and Mr. Lark has been there, and a lot of y'all know Mr. Lark, and a phenomenal program, but it's just getting time. And I know this may not be the right venue, but I've already had some discussions with school board members, individuals in that department and program, and maybe just something we could talk about, maybe pitching in of the next couple of years. It's gotten to where it's got some big cracks in the, it's an antebellum home, I would guess, for the people that don't know, but it may be time, and just a shout out to Mr. Lark and all that he does. Second was, I wish Mr. Logan was here, but we went to the Challengers. They started doing a special needs program. The Parks Department reached out and they did this, and they had a basketball. It's about 5 or 6 Sundays in a row. I know we got an email on it, but 2 to 3 if any of y'all want to come out there. And we went out and looked and checked it out this last Sunday, and just really wanted to give a shout out to the Parks. I know we got the Pineapple Tourism Award, but also this is something that the Parks Department has done just above and beyond, and reached out and recognize people in this community that have special needs kids and just give them a chance to get out and just play and have a good time on Sunday afternoon. So it is Sunday from 2 to 3. So thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. And the basketball league is in full swing, so lots of things going on in the parks for the kids. So we appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. We will go to citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone to come speak to the board. You have 3 minutes. It'll be timed, and this is a you to us comment about anything you have that you're considering. We don't necessarily respond back. So, Mr. Turner.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. To the mayor, to the police chief Mark, to the fire chief Charles Yarbrough, and to the NACP president Yolanda Hatch. The primary for the election of the president, the United States Senate, and the House of Representatives. The primary will be March 10th, 2020. The census also is on the move, and they need workers to help them get it right with the numbers for the census of 2020. The electoral department, we got a rude awakening on paying bills. They got a machine, and the electoral department need to kind of educate the citizens on the machine, because everything is happening now, and people are very leery of working with a machine versus talking to a person, a human. So that's just some things that need to be considered.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
This is a little intimidating.
Don't let it be. If you just put your name up for the record, so we'll know. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Hagan Walker, and I'm the vice chair of the Starkville Main Street Association, and I'll keep this very short, but I wanted to urge each of you to approve the Fire Station Park Phase 1 improvement plans that were submitted to you earlier this week by Mayor Spruill on behalf of our organization. We've spent several years gathering data and talking to community members and visitors of things we can do to improve Starkville, and the conversation always leads back to Fire Station Park. It's an enjoyable space that is the home to many community-based events, including the Farmers Market, Downtown at Sundown, and this year we'll also host the King Cotton Crawfish Bowl. Taking all of this into consideration, we started work on an overall master plan of Fire Station Park, which you can see on page 3 of the handout provided. Not only does this master plan bolster the entertainment value of the space, but it also provides some much-needed safety upgrades, including adding pathway lighting, paving the University Drive entrance to meet ADA specifications, and repairing fencing to keep young children away from busy Russell Street. Another major part of this plan is to add electricity and a pavilion to the park. Currently, we spend anywhere from $500 to $2,500 per event hosted, and there's currently not a stage for performers, and we have to rent generators for power. In cost savings, this plan will pay for itself over the next 3 to 5 years. I encourage you to have a look through the PDF sent to each of you and to approve this motion tonight so that we can start work on these improvements immediately. We have a tight goal to get the pavilion erected before the King Cotton Crawfish Bowl in April. Last, and this should make each of you very happy, the Starkville Main Street Association and the Starkville CVB will be funding this project in full. We're not asking for any additional funding to improve the city park, only your approval. And we've also gotten approval and recommendation from Gary Logan on behalf of Starkville Parks and Rec. So thanks again for your time and your consideration.
And you will note that it did reach the consent agenda, so unless somebody wants to pull it off and do something differently, you are approved.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
We appreciate what y'all do.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ann Birchfield. I'm in Ward 6. And I just would like to express my gratitude And thanks for the sewage that was taking place out there on Roundhouse Road. It's been 21 years for things like that to take place, and I just would like to thank Mr. Terry Kemp, Miss Benson, and all the hard workers of Starkville that was
Okay.
there to help on Roundhouse Road. And I also want to give a big shout out to my alderman, Ward 6, Mr. Perkins. Thank you so much for the road. The road is wonderful. The dream became a reality, and I just want to thank you.
You're so welcome.
And one of my friends that I was talking to, and I was coming in the store, and she said, one of the vice mayor and the alderman, like he's alderman in Ward 6. I said, that's in my ward. She said, well, he's trying to pursue his career in another destination. I didn't know anything about it. She said, well, he is needed there on the ward and on the board. And I said, I agree. So it was for you to be here with us. And I'm so glad that you got a chance to be and continue
Thank you.
with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Birchfield. All right, anyone else under citizens' comments?
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am not going to ask you for anything. My name is Philip Carter. I am the freshly minted new director of the Starkville-Oktibbeha County Public Library System. I wanted to take this opportunity to get you to have a face to the name, as you'll eventually start seeing my name and face a little more often. I am around if you have any questions for me, if you have any concerns about library service, if you have any questions about the things we're doing and the things we're hoping to start doing here real soon. I want to make myself as available to you as I can be. Again, I'm not asking for anything today.
Budget will be coming up in a while.
It'll happen. We are deep in state legislative session, as you all know, and the way things go at the state affect the way things happen for us down at Starkville-Oktibbeha County Public Library System, and those are important. I'll actually be in Jackson all day tomorrow telling people about how those things affect us. So we hope you will continue to tell your legislators how important it is that they make sure they help us at the state level, because that helps us at the local level, and it makes me have to ask y'all for less. Not really, but so thank y'all.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and welcome to Starkville.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Any go out of town?
Hi, my name is Kyla Williams.
And I'm Benson Lee.
We are with the Mayor's Youth Council, and we came here today to attend one of our board meetings. We would like to let y'all know that on February the 21st, we are having our bus driver?
Yes.
Yeah, our bus driver breakfast, where we make breakfast for all the bus drivers to show our appreciation. And also we're doing an annual clothes drive.
March 7th.
March 7th? Okay. And that's most of
And when's your annual clothes drive? What was your date?
the March 7th.
March 7th, okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. Y'all have fulfilled your obligation.
Get ready to take a trip.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will move to board business, which is going to be consideration of authorizing the issuance of a general obligation bond for one or more federal taxable or tax-exempt series not to exceed $25 million, sale to the MDA, Mississippi Development Bank, for the purpose of acquiring real property, constructing, equipping, owning, operating, leasing, furnishing, maintaining, and marketing new and existing sports tournament and recreational facilities of the municipality and related purposes. Alderman Sistrunk.
I believe this is the next to the last step in getting monies issued in bonds to fund the Cornerstone Park that should start turning dirt soon. If I could ask a rep from Government Consultants, I have just a couple of questions and then a motion. And for those of y'all that don't know, this bond is of a size and complexity that we have not done here in the city of Starkville. It's up to $25 million, a term of up to 30 years. It's guaranteed by the 1% food and beverage sales tax, which the community voted on back last summer, and we've begun collecting. And where Government Consultants comes in is helping us put together and structure this bond in a way that allows us to get as many as much money diverted to that project in a reasonable revenue stream projection as possible. So I have a handful of questions, and then I'm going to have a motion. This is an atypical bond for us in terms of size and complexity. Does it make sense for us to name an underwriter with this resolution tonight?
Yeah, and certainly the resolution in the project itself makes sense to name an underwriter based off of the discussions we've had, the size, the term length, all the things that you mentioned, as well as just the market conditions that are out there compared to some of the other bank-offered options versus underwritten options. So, I mean, that certainly is the way to go.
And this is, there are a couple of revenue streams that we're hoping to use for all of this. So it makes sense for y'all to begin work in structuring those bonds so that we can go to a sale in late February, early March, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of the size of the bond and the work involved in structuring, this is going to require an underwriter that has a significant distribution system with both retail and institutional customers.
Sure, yeah. 30 years is a long time to carry debt. I mean, we have the terms not to 30 years. That's the term we're looking at based off of the revenue stream. We're looking at a lower revenue stream for the first 7-8 years and then picking up after that and then carrying this debt out a pretty long ways. So having an underwriter with the ability to take it out that long and then can sell 30-year debt is very important, certainly.
And one of the things that's always important to us is if possible, it's always good to do business locally, and I know that's of concern to several of the aldermen. The truth of the matter is the only there isn't an underwriter with an office here in the city of Starkville, so the only customer for these bonds here in Starkville would likely be a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my understanding that a bank would not want all of this debt because of the term.
Yeah, so commercial banks historically, and even of late, don't typically buy 30-year term debt, right? So their appetite is around the 15, 12. They like a shorter average life. Having the ability to attract institutional and retail investors is certainly important. And also with that, we had these discussions before in the work session about this project, that we would explore every avenue that's out there. We had a pricing earlier today where just unbelievable interest rates have came in, and the break even to go out and pursue a commercial bank is a lot more than what you get on a public offering out there today. So with the consideration of a lower revenue stream and then bringing that back up after the existing park bonds get paid off in 27, and then adding in kind of where the different local profits are coming in and out of there. All those things are really important to be able to take advantage of the premiums that an underwriter can offer, particularly where the scale here is to take the bid opening on February 18th for the dirt work, get that amount, approach the design team to work out where they expect the final design price to be, and issue an amount of money that is going to be less of that, take advantage of the premium that's on the market to deliver more to the project than what the par amount would be out there. So I think we're in the 18, 17 range, or maybe even south of that right now. And as long as more conditions hold out, it could even improve even better than that, right? But all of those things are an advantage of having an underwriter to capture the premium, whereas commercial banks, that's not typically an opportunity. That's just not something that commercial banks do. You generally treat it just like a mortgage or a car loan. You say, hey, I need this amount of money over this amount of years. They look at your credit, they give you a check, right? And they do great work, right? But in this chance, they're going to get a chance to buy part of Starkville as well as other people as well.
Thank you. All right. Well, Mayor, if I could, I'd like to move approval of the resolution of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville Mississippi, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, issued in one or more federally taxable or tax-exempt series in a total aggregate principal amount not to exceed $25 million for sale to the Mississippi Development Bank to provide funds for the purpose of acquiring real property and constructing, equipping, owning, operating, leasing, furnishing, maintaining, and marketing new and existing sports tournament and recreational facilities of the municipality and for related purposes, and that Raymond James serve as the underwriter for the bonds.
All right, I have a motion, and City Clerk, did you get all that? You good with that?
I have,
You want to pass it down? Okay, here we go.
Can I ask a question or two?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get a second first. Do I have a second? I have a second from Alderman Little. All right, Alderman Beatty.
Is it customary, Mr. Shore, on bond proposals, packages of this size to request proposals from, most cities just select somebody? Would they ask for a request through the consultants to ask for proposals on the sale of bonds?
Yes, so obviously the finance business has a lot of different moving parts in the way that process works, right? So there is a proposal process. It's not an apples to apples type process. It's something we can just simply do in terms of obtain data and let the board look at it that way. And that's certainly an opportunity. I think here, looking at is where are you going to get the best distribution and where are you going to get the best kind of deal for this project is where I'm currently at, right? So in my position as an independent municipal advisor on the financial side, the underwriter is chosen by the city and through whatever process and how that needs to be done.
As our consultants, would you be prepared to make a recommendation on which direction we go? The request for proposals or just naming a bond underwriter?
We could talk about how that process works. We talk about the proposal process. It's just really how the city wants to approach that. We've done it a number of different ways. And in our terms of the proposal would be just to collect that data and then present it back to the city to make a decision based off of what underwriter they would like to utilize. And I don't want to backtrack from the question. At this point, where y'all are currently at in the process, you could do it either way, right? I mean, it's up to really where the city wants to go. I don't think the city's going to get a bad deal in any direction that it chooses to go with this. For the most part, all the underwriters are generally the same.
Are we doing our due diligence by, this is not a question to get a certain answer, but I'm just asking a question. I don't say the appearance of it, but are we doing our due diligence by naming versus going request for proposal on that, or what?
Yeah, and right. So there's a consideration of, and again, the proposal process is a challenge in itself, right? I mean, it's a process that we've looked at tirelessly through a number of different avenues to approach on how do we really choose an underwriter. And I think it comes down to a couple different factors. And we try to make it certainly as objective as possible and try to ignore most of the subjective facts that exist. But it really comes down to a number of real qualifying factors in terms of, like I said, the distribution, the types of transactions, the familiarity with these types of transactions. And then you're going to have to try to make an objective decision based off of proposals that either you obtain for each underwriter that exists, to say, give me a best pricing scenario, and see if you can get all those things kind of matched together, or just look at the existing data of the underwriters and make a decision based off of that. So the proposal process merely is the same way of just reviewing what underwriters have done in the past with these types of transactions and choosing an underwriter that you think is going to fit that mold with that. But the proposal process that a lot of people think is not an easy part in order of, if I was to go out to underwriters and say, hey, I just need everybody to send me some numbers and let's look at it and make a decision, it's it's more built off of what is the underwriter capable of doing rather than what they give to us in one spot in time. It's hard to make a due diligence kind of assessment or selection based off of that process.
How far is it, how long does that usually delay, if you went through the question proposal, does that delay your process versus what we prepared to do in our motion tonight?
So, the point came up where we're at the tail end of where we're at on this current park project. We've gone through the intent, we've closed out some of the other resolutions, and now we're at the bond resolution. Next week, we will be bringing documents to the Mississippi Development Bank, doing the same thing, authorizing and directing the sale of these bonds at some date here in the future. We're at the point where we're ready to move over to the rating side, begin those rating packages. And the timeline, it's really up to where the city wants, what the city wants to do. We have the time, we can go wherever the direction the city would like.
Alderman Beatty? I think Alderman Sistrunk had done a pretty good amount of due diligence. Is there a chance, can I ask a question of Alderman Sistrunk, see maybe?
Sure.
You had a particular, I think, inclination toward Raymond James for a reason. Would you like to share that with the board?
I'm happy to, and we've done business with several different underwriters. We have had good experiences with all of them. This is a unique a unique set of bonds for us, and there are probably within the people who normally do business in the state of Mississippi, external to the state of Mississippi itself, there are probably only a couple of underwriters that would submit proposals. If others did, they would certainly be from outside the state of Mississippi. I've leaned heavily on the fact that Raymond James has done the most of this type of issuance in the state of Mississippi. They have a distribution system that allows them to have both retail and institutional customers, and they have a great deal of experience, or as much as one could in the state of Mississippi, in doing this sort of bond that's guaranteed by sales tax, backed by GO debt.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I'd share because she had mentioned to me.
I have one
Yes,
question. Will these be tax exempt bonds? Will these be, or taxable, mix of both, or how will this thing, in your opinion, shake out?
So, I mean, it's a legal opinion on where it falls in terms of the IRS tax code on the taxability versus a tax exempt bond issuance. We are pursuing everything as being tax exempt, as in they all fulfill a public purpose. The taxable language is added on for the instance that if there's similar other park projects we've worked on where there was contracts involved in terms of operating those parks or utilizing space that was going to earn some type of revenue, right? So if you look at a use test type situation, we don't foresee that being a situation here. That language was added in the very beginning to cover whatever direction the city was going to go into as this project unfolds and moves along. But the expectation is all tax exempt unless through that use test calculation of how much money is going to each part, and there's a question of whether part of that money is going to fall under to a taxable event that would occur.
Does that affect the rate? It does, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes, sir. So taxable rates are a lot more expensive than tax exempt. And I say a lot more in today's world. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as it was, say, 4 or 5 years ago. But sure, I mean, taxable rates do cost more money to borrow versus a tax exempt debt. We haven't come across a taxable triggering type event is through the project we've worked through so far. And if that does come up, that's why both of those languages in there to be able to take out and carve the smallest amount of money we can to make that part taxable if that event was to occur. But we haven't gotten to that point, and that's, bond counsel, everybody will have to really kind of go through that part and let us know where that would end up.
Will this be a fixed rate, 30 years?
Yes, sir, absolutely. All new money debt in the state of Mississippi has to be fixed rate. Yeah, so we haven't gone variable rate in a long time. That's been a thing that the market hasn't seen since pre-2007. It'll be a fixed rate issuance. I mean, and the drive here is to kind of get through everything, the documents ready to go. The 18th, the bids are open for the site work. Take that money out of the design fees. The architects give us where that amount is, and we are structuring, been working through and going to structure up to issue the amount of money needed to hit that amount with a premium, fit the revenue stream, and make it work from there, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Carter?
Well, I was going to ask, if Raymond James was approved tonight, what was the total fees that they would be charging us as a city? I mean,
So, on our side, as a municipal advisor, right, there's not a financial incentive for any underwriter for me to do business. I don't make money from the underwriters, and if I did, I would be in federal prison, right? So the underwriter, at any point, just like anybody who does business in the state of Mississippi, can submit whatever they'd like to the city. It's my federal registration, and under my purview, is to determine whether that is a market rate or not. Is the city getting a good value out of the fees that are associated with that transaction? When Raymond James if Raymond James is the bank and they bring that fee to the table, I will give you an answer or provide an analysis of whether that is a market rate or not. But I don't respond to, and I'm not saying that in any derogatory manner, but my role is simply to reply back to anything, whether it's suitable to the city and whether the fees are reasonable or not. And I don't know what their fees are going to be. They're welcome to try me, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
well, I guess that's leading. My secondary question was, how do we approve something without knowing, without a competitive bid process? That question's been posed to me is the different organizations or companies that we've done business with from the underwriting side is how do you approve something without knowing if you could have gotten a better price from another company or putting it out for competitive bid? So what's the answer for that?
Competitive bid is in selecting an underwriter, or competitive bid?
Sure. I mean, if we put it out for bid and we got the lowest, typically what we search for is the lowest and best bid, and if we haven't done a bidding process, how do we ensure the public that we're...
The bidding process for selecting underwriter, you would exclude the fees, because that would become a subjective opinion, right? It wouldn't be an objective opinion to include fees of an underwriter. Partly because the fees are tied to how the debt is sold. Through a competitive transaction, bonds are sold by us receiving bids, or a city, a municipality, school district, whoever receiving bids. And all you really see is a debt service schedule that says, this is what your interest rate is, and this is what you're going to have to pay. On the other side of that, the financial world is obviously much more detailed and in-depth than that part right there, right? So on a negotiated transaction, you're paying a fee to obtain the premium, and to just set that premium and set that coupon structure to wherever you need it to be at. Is and I say the fee is subjective because one bank is going to produce a different end price than another bank is going to produce in terms of where that premium is, based off of the type of clients that they have, retail, institutional, whoever that may be, how their network is established, how their sales force works. So it is a and then again, I don't want to backtrack. I feel like I'm probably backtracking from some of these answers, but it's a subjective kind of opinion on if we just said, look, on every underwriter in the entire United States to send us a proposal and send me your fee and select based off of that, it would be tough to say whether you're getting a really good deal or not, right? Because fees are always negotiable.
So by putting it out for a competitive bid pricing and underwriting, are we not saying that we could possibly see savings, taxpayer savings, or you're saying the fees are subjective and you can pick a certain company tonight, whoever it is, and move forward, and that's not going to, we're always looking to, any money we save can be used on another ball field.
Where we're looking at getting to save the best amount of money is through the negotiated process, selecting an underwriter through that deal, and how that interest rate impacts is really where we determine whether we left money on the table or not. And then you don't really know that until you get there. And that's the hard part. That's the challenge, right? The challenge is that today a 30-year Treasury notes are just over 2%, which is extremely cheap money. This project won't be ready to bid until early March. We're close to a month away. Rates could move pretty significantly from there, right? So if we obtain competitive bids based off of today's rates, you'd make a selection based off of what the rates are today and maybe not what they're going to be 30 days from now, which, you know, is hard to measure that, right? So really looking at how the process works is look at the data, look at the distribution, and look at, you know, who's going to be able to cover a 30-year debt term length and this amount of money. And that's really what you're trying to do. And I can assure you that myself and Mr. Lynn, and we're not going to allow something to get out of hand to where we think the city is getting a bad deal on any ounce of this, right? If there's a question, if there's a concern in terms of as we get into the pricing and where the numbers lie out, we can stop the process at that point and kind of go from there. It's just, you don't know until you get there in terms of the actual pricing, right, which is still about a month away.
Got one last question for you now. I just had questions after we met the other day about the 2027 rolling off, and this is going to be the Sportsplex funding. So it retains a flat rate for the remainder of it. I mean, the 30-year rate is fixed, is what you're
Yes,
saying.
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
that has no bearing on the rate. I mean, when that rolls off in 2027, it doesn't affect. You're telling me it's just 30-year fixed.
Yeah, so, right, so the way we're looking at this is we're structuring the park kind of revenues that are available from all the different things that exist. So when that existing park and rec bond issuance pays off in 2027, it's about $400,000 is what that payment is. So we're considering that $400,000 as an increment to the revenues that are going to be, that are suggested to be pledged towards this project. So we're using the amount of what the debt service was to say, well, that debt's gone now. We can now consider that as part of the new park and rec issuance that is out there. So, yeah, right, that bond never had a variable rate. It was a fixed rate. We knew what those payments were. And when the city of Starkville issues its next debt for this next park project, if it is a 30-year term, you'll know exactly what you're going to pay for 30 years. That will not change. It'll be a known deal.
So are these like straight, excuse me,
That's okay, go ahead.
are these like, this is not like a straight amortized, straight line, fixed amortized type loan like conventional financing would be? The bonds, repayment of bond debt, different amounts. How does that normally work?
Yeah, I mean, what we try to achieve is a level debt service as best we can, right? So you'll see, just like if you look at a mortgage loan where you're paying less principal up front because you're paying more interest, and as you're paying the interest down, you're putting more towards the premium, towards the principal, and you'll start paying more principal on the back end and less interest in the back end as there's less money outstanding. But the overall debt service payments will be relatively level after 2028, when we freed up the extra revenue from the existing park bonds, be level after that. Up front, we're looking at just a small amount of revenue going towards paying this project to a level that the city feels comfortable with committing to the project. And that's why we're currently working through the structure of that right now to get to the process of where the dollar amounts come in, and then look at the revenue that's there and give it to the city to say, does this look comfortable? Does this look what the city wants to do? And say whether the revenue is good or not good, or it's in the money or where it needs to be, and go from there.
If these are GO bonds, this ties the city's full faith and credit to the
Well,
bond debt.
these bonds will be, or they are presented as general obligation bonds. Your local and private 1565 that was passed in the legislature last year allowed for the general obligation to be considered as pledging the full faith and credit, but is not subject to the debt limit that is out there, right? A city can't expend more than 15% of general obligation bond, 20% for utility provided general obligation bond. So there will be a pledge of general obligation. The sources of revenue are the existing sales tax amounts that are out there, and any lawful available revenue the municipality has. So there's not anything in one particular that has to be on there. The city has an opportunity to use anything at its disposal to pay this, up to and including part of what is now the city's bond and interest fund, which is established this year, could fit with that just the same. But it is a general obligation in terms of that gets you the best rate that a municipality in the state of Mississippi can offer.
Is there a lot of 30-year debt out there? I mean, or cities like Vicksburg? Was there Are you familiar with what they?
Theirs was just over 20, it was in the around 23, 24 term length range there. There's not a lot of 30-year debt that exists out there. I mean, the debt can only extend as long as the asset life can carry it. So there is a IRS calculation that the lawyers will work out to see what the carrying life is of the assets that are being financed, and can the term take it that long. All the indications are that it can go up to 30 years. We're offering up to 30 years because we're trying to keep the revenue down to fit within the operation model that's currently being worked on the park side, right? So those things just kind of have to mesh, meet in the middle, and then we kind of work through the revenue. And if we can shorten the term up, we'll shorten the term up as best we can. And just as another note, there's not much difference in interest borrowing costs from between 20 to 30 years, which is a good advantage. So it gives a lot of leeway where we don't have to make a decision to say, well, guys, we really want to look at a 26-year versus a 30 because your interest is going to jump up dramatically. It's relatively flat in the long end at this point right now. So if the advantage is on the cash flow side to lengthen the term out, that's something the city would want to consider of capturing that, as opposed to saying, well, let's shorten the term up as short as we can and then move things around on the operation on the budget side because we don't want a higher interest rate down the road. And those decisions are made by the city, certainly, and we can just provide where those rates are going to fall into what the effective borrowing over those terms are.
I appreciate it. Mayor,
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by, I tell you what, please answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yeah.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Beatty.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
Okay, by a vote of 4 to 3, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Shore. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shore.
All right, under planning, we have one special event request by Mr. Brazil on behalf of the Starkville Pride to hold the 2020 Pride Parade.
Move approval.
I'm sorry?
Move approval.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Walker. Discussion? All those in favor, please answer as the city clerk calls your name. Say yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name. Sorry.
Alderman Carver.
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Beatty.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
All right, by a vote of 4 to 3, motion carries. Thank you. And then we have a claims docket. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman
Second.
Carver and a second from Alderman Little. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion,
Nay.
I'm sorry, by 5 to 2, motion carries. And that concludes our items on the agenda. We will now, I need a motion to go into closed.
Closed session.
I'm sorry, I have a motion from Alderman Little to go into closed session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If you would, please clear the Is that it? Is that everybody? Okay. The board has voted to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the potential acquisition of property at 100 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. So if you would please took no action in executive session on this item. So, we will be, we're at the point of getting a recess, but first I need to make an announcement